Introduction. Jack London once said, "Life is not always a matter of holding good cards, but sometimes playing a poor hand well." This is the philosophy of the cultural phenomenon that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the name of a card game, an anime, a manga, and several video games produced by Konami and created by Kazuki Takahashi. It has an intricate set of rules, a thriving community, a bunch of different anime and manga, up to 7, depending on how you count, and a few video games, and over 10,000 cards at the time of writing this, nearly 11,000. How does a franchise become such a popular facet of two cultures who treat it very differently, American and Japanese? The reason is simple. Yu-Gi-Oh! Represents most, if not all, parts of Japanese culture in some way, shape, or form, creating something that every person can appreciate at some level. History. Yu-Gi-Oh! First appeared in an issue of Shonen Jump magazine in September of 1996. This first series of 7 volumes featured Yugi Moto in his ongoing quest to be a real man. These featured several different games, from both American and Japanese origins, and they cycled out week to week. However, the first game they showed, a trading card game called Duel Monsters, really stuck with audiences. And the series shifted the focus to take place in a world where everyone plays this game. They picked up the story from where the anime begins, a duel between Yugi and his later rival Seto Kaiba. The manga stretched on, and the Duelist Kingdom arc began, where the rules were pretty much made up as they went along. The next season focused on the Battle City arc, where the rules were more fleshed out and more concrete. After that, Atlantis rose and sank, and the story kept going until time travel was invented, and it finally ended in a dramatic finale. 2 years after the original publication of the manga in April of 1998, the anime came out as a relatively faithful recreation to the general audience, apart from the text being removed to save time for the animators. The first season, starting from Duelist Kingdom, ran for 27 episodes and ended in October of the same year. The series continued on until 2004, when the show ran out of manga. Soon after that, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had a few spin-offs to show off new products and promote new sets. First the mangas, and then the anime. These series were Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which focused on fusions, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds with the premiere of Synchro, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal and its spotlight on Xyz, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V, which promoted all 3 of the previous card types, along with the new pendulums, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains, with the rollout of Links, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, which introduced a new rule set and new cards entirely. I'll talk about these more in the second paragraph of the card game section of this research paper. Before the first season of the first anime ended, the real moneymaker started development, the card game. Released into the Japanese consumer base in 1999, then to North America in 2002, the cards were the thing that separated Yu-Gi-Oh! From its competitors of the era by sheer quantity produced. Things like Pokemon had the games and Beyblade had its spinners, but those were hard to produce en masse compared to the shiny cardboard rectangles that comprised Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game. The game itself is arranged like many classic Japanese games, like Riichi, Mahjong, or Shogi, in a grid of rectangles that dictate special places for cards. These cards split into 3 different types: monsters, spells, and traps, color-coded with tan, green, and pink respectively. The objective is, at its most basic, to take turns using monsters to attack, slowly reducing your opponent's life points from 8,000 to 0. Spells help to further your strategy, while traps interrupt your opponent. There are many different types of monster cards, as listed in the 3rd paragraph of the history section of this research paper. Each of these are color-coded and require a different method to play. Fusion monsters are purple, and require spells to summon. Ritual monsters, light blue in color, and making their debut in the Duelist Kingdom arc to little fanfare, require a spell card as well. Synchro monsters, bordered in white, are played by adding levels, which most monsters have, while Xyz monsters, bordered in black, are played by matching levels. Pendulum monsters can be played as spells, and the bottom half of the card is the green of the spells to show this. Link monsters, with a blue background inlaid with a hexagonal pattern, are played simply by getting rid of other monsters. Predictably, not all the cards in the game have random artworks and uses, or effects. Some fit into a set, commonly referred in the Yu-Gi-Oh community to as an archetype. These archetypes have a win condition and ways to achieve it, be that summoning a big monster really fast, a bunch of monsters in one turn, keeping the opponent from doing things, or making the opponent want to play a different game. These basic strategies are referred to as aggro, combo, control, and stun, respectively. Another common aspect of an archetype is that they share an art style or theme between them. For example, there's an archetype of cards called Su-ships, and each of the cards in the archetype is a combination of sushi and seafaring vessels. There is another archetype called Speedroids, all based on classic Japanese toys and games. The Mayakashi and Shiranui are based on yokai and samurai, respectively, and weave a tale through their art similar to that of classic Japanese folklore. All of these archetypes are based on something from Japanese culture, and this trait is shared by many cards in the game. This variety of cultures from not only Japan, but all over Asia and the West are part of why Yu-Gi-Oh! Is some part of most things in Japanese culture. But there is one major part of Yu-Gi-Oh! That is based on Japanese pop culture, and it's possibly the most important part. The hunt for shinier cardboard. A gacha is similar to gambling, but with less stakes. Broadly, they're a thing that one puts money into, and it gives them something random. To quote Guidable.com, the first vending machine using coins in the modern world can be traced back to the 1880s, selling postcards and gum in New York and London. However, even though the capsule toy machine first appeared overseas, gachapon is uniquely Japanese. In the 1960s, Ryuzo Shigeta, later known as the grandfather of gachapon, set up the first gachapon machine in Japan, with each product inside a plastic ball. This quote tells us that gachapon machines were established in Japan, but they only became popular as time went on. Yu-Gi-Oh! Adopted a marketing strategy similar to that, and other card games of the time, such as baseball cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Packs became the way original cards were released, a small, sealed pack of 5 to 9 random cards. In every set released, there are chase cards, highly coveted for their effects and rarity. In the early days, people got creative in trying to determine what packs held these rare, usually expensive cards. People brought scales that went down to the milligram to find the right packs, and this prompted a change in rollout. After that, each pack was made nearly uniformly heavy by including one shiny rare card or comprising the entire pack of shiny rare cards, making the scales useless. In response, people who own the rarest of rare cards could sell them at higher prices than ever before, the peak even reaching nearly $10,000 for a single card. Such expenses for such little products are very indicative of Japan today. Things like taxes or movie tickets are insanely expensive. Conclusion. In conclusion, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a part of so many different aspects of Japanese culture. These range from the way the cards are sold to the way they're drawn, even to the time they were invented. It goes to show that when a franchise gets large enough to be the best-selling card game of all time, and the people try hard enough, they can make something that encapsulates everything under the sun. A true bit of Japanese ideology is on full display here, gaman. And what's more Japanese than that? Probably giant robots.